Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we check out a Netflix original film in the order of release. This episode, we have Netflix 169th film from 2019. It's the rom-com Falling in Love, directed by Roger Kumble. It stars Christina Milian, oh my God, whatever, Christina Milian, Adam Demos, and Jeffrey Bowyer-Chapman. I am Jesse, and I am here with MJ. How are you?
Is it not just Christina?
Yeah, I'm getting confused with Christina Milian, the singer. Is it
No, Christina Milian, and
Is it the same person?
It is the singer. It's
Okay,
the
there
same
you
person.
go.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm playing jumbles. I'm like, yeah. Anyway, okay, good. It's the same person. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Christina Milian.
Yeah,
What's she
Christina
like?
Milian. Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So it's the same person.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. But
Amazing.
singer.
That's what I want to hear. Oh. Well, it's the end of the year. We're getting close to heading into 2022. I'm cooked and I'm ready to talk about this film. So
At least you know that we don't sit here and really try and polish this conversation, because we very easily could have just pressed stop and started again.
Oh,
but this is how we do it. We're a one take kind of thing. We want you to be part of the conversation, like you're sitting on the couch with us.
And I I reckon if you listened back last week when I spoke about what we're talking about this week, I stuffed it up then too. So it's been a lot of pressure on that name for a week for me. So. Let's do our fast flicks, where we start off and we do a quick summary of the film. What's your fast flicks for Falling in Love?
Falling in Love. A San Francisco-based career girl heads to New Zealand after winning an online competition to own an inn in the countryside.
Excellent. I've just said it's after a horrendous day, Gabriella wins a property which isn't all it seems, but leads to a bit of self-discovery.
Oh, hello. I like that. It's very unlike you.
Yeah, I used the character's name. That was my.
You did. And you didn't say like one, like 7 words about like a really general thing of what happened. So I'm impressed. I like it. It's growth.
I actually listened back to a few of our earlier episodes earlier in the week just to be like, it's been a while. Let's have a listen. And we have my fast flicks has changed quite a lot over a couple of years, and so is our conversation. So it's amazing how much growth we've shown.
That's good. I should probably do the same. I'd be curious to hear it.
I don't recommend it.
Why? Because we're so good now.
Yeah, we're so much better now. What were you able to find out about this one? Fill us in on some anything about the making of this film.
Yeah, look, nothing too special. Basically, the first thing we find out about this film came in February 2019, and that was when it was announced that Netflix had greenlit the project for Falling in Love. And they'd already had Christina Milian and Adam Demos on board, Roger Kumble as the director, all on board. They filmed it in Thames in New Zealand, unsurprisingly. I would have been so disappointed if it wasn't filmed in New Zealand, just because of the way the film was. And look, then it was released, from that announcement and from that time, it was only released like 6 months later on Netflix, of course, August 29, 2019. So pretty straightforward. Netflix obviously just picking this up from the start, getting it done and putting it on our services.
Yeah, as you mentioned, filmed in New Zealand, and I think it's the first Netflix original that was entirely shot in New Zealand. It's another cool little thing. The only other thing, the translations for this one were great. I haven't had so much fun looking at the translations for a film in a while, because across the world there are some great titles for this one. And I'll probably put it out there now. If you haven't seen this film and you're interested in checking it out, give us a pause, come back later, because we'll probably spoil it. And some of these titles probably, well, not that the title already doesn't spoil much as it is, but these will probably spoil some more. So translations across the world. So in there's a lot of the Spanish-speaking world, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, Spain. It's called Love is in the Works. So another play on the word works. So didn't mind that. Hungary, not a big fan of this one. It was called Love First Time Hospitality. That's pretty ordinary. Even worse was French Canada, where it's called Reach the Altar.
Oh, that's bad.
There's no.
I didn't watch that movie.
No, I did not watch that movie either. Italy, it was called Renovation with Love. That's not too bad. It's
like it.
Fits in there. In Japan, it was called The Premonition of Love. So again, it sticks into that. But it had a subtitle called Hotel Renovation Struggle. And still a couple more. In Poland, it was called Love Under the One Roof.
Okay.
Good. Yeah, not bad. Norway, it was called Happiness is an Inn, as in the inn that they stay in.
Okay.
Yep. And then we had another one before about under construction, but Greece, it was called Love Under Construction. The last one, Vietnam, it's called Building Love. So all use these
Oh, yeah.
types of words, which aren't too bad. So a good range there.
I kind of like the fact that the English title is a pun. Don't get a lot of pun titles. It doesn't. The problem with puns, particularly this one, is you need to see it written to actually get the effect of it.
Yep.
What movie did you watch? Falling in Love. Oh, what a terrible title. But
Yeah.
no. Falling in love, like an
Two
in.
ends. Yeah, good. Like what are the critics and the people online talking about this one? What are their thoughts?
Yeah, so it's got I would say, a middle of the road kind of consensus. It's sitting at a 5.6 out of 10 on IMDb off 18,000 ratings, which is not a bad number of ratings, to be perfectly honest. And I do remember when this film came out. I don't know why. Maybe I think it might have been that period when Netflix was maybe releasing like one a week. So they weren't being like ridiculous like they're doing now, but they were sort of really promoting the films that they released, particularly on their own platform. But anyway, I do remember this one. 18,000 on IMDb is a good number. A little bit less love for it on Letterboxd, 2.3 out of 5. So they'd be a little bit disappointed with that number. 11,500 ratings there. Not really your Letterboxd kind of film either. So, I mean, it's not terrible to be getting, nearly 12,000 ratings for that as well. So, that's kind of where it sits.
Good. On Rotten Tomatoes, sits on 67% on 21 reviews. So that's actually fresh. And the audience had it on 34% on a bit over 250, which is a little bit lower. Yeah. All right. Well, what are your early thoughts on this one? What fill us in?
Well, my early thoughts, I feel like more than anything, this was like a postcard for New Zealand or like a tourist attraction video. It was very beautiful. The scenery and all the locations, and it made that whole sea change thing feel like the perfect antidote for our main character. And you're kind of sitting there yelling at Gabriella to stay in rural New Zealand because, look how beautiful it is and look how happy you are, but you'd never do it yourself. It's funny how movies can put you in that situation to go, it's the obvious choice, stay where you are, but I'd never do it. But the movie itself was fine. I think I eventually got into it. It started a bit slow and I was a bit like, oh, can I be bothered with this? But I kind of had no issue sitting through it.
Yeah, I'm saying this was pretty tame, a little bit lame. Fits the cookie cutter sort of rom-com perfectly, and I don't have too much else to say.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, this one's got a variety of townspeople sort of characters, but I guess there's two main characters we want to talk about. What fill us in?
Gabriella. I had to check actually, because her name was Gabriella Montez or something. They called her really early on, and I had to check that wasn't the same name as Vanessa Hudgens' character in High School Musical. I think one of them's Montez, one of them's Diaz. I can't remember which is which, but anyway, I thought they were really similar. Gabriella, very strong, a little bit stubborn, very independent. The perfect character that you'd want leading a rom-com in this situation. I kind of liked the fact that she allowed herself to be slowly taken by love. It wasn't necessarily just like you meet cute where, oh, I don't like this guy, which is normal. And then all of a sudden the guy is perfect and she all of a sudden thinks he's perfect. She slowly warms up to him, which I appreciated. It felt a lot more realistic. And when things went wrong in the relationship, it wasn't just a case of we've had this tiny little disagreement and it's all going to go belly up. She does try to right the wrongs. It's never, there's nothing I hate worse and nothing I hate more in a rom-com is when something goes wrong. That's a really tiny little thing that they've had a disagreement with, and they're just both too stubborn to do anything about it. And then they have to have this big thing where they come together. But she kind of realizes very quickly when they have their disagreements, and she kind of wants to make it right pretty quickly, which felt a little bit more realistic than maybe your normal rom-com. So I think Gabriella as a character really worked for this role.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think even the performance for this type of role, fit in really well. You got to have these cliches and things that you're going to see with these characters. Wants to have dreams, wants to be independent, but also wants to have shared goals with the person that she wants to be in love with, and obviously starts off with such a rough day, and you've got to have those issues that you start off with. You're losing your job, losing your boyfriend, all those sorts of things, and it all fits in really well with this type of film, and it's very hard you can't be too critical about it because it's the type of film that you're coming into, realistically.
Very true. Yeah, that's what it says in the box.
Yeah. Jake, is Jake your next one? Is that a Jakey boy?
Jake is definitely my next one. He's basically just Mr. Perfect, right? Because he's a good looking guy. He's handy, like really handy. He basically just like rebuilt a house. He's a little bit worldly. He's been abroad. He's been to university overseas, all that kind of stuff. He's the chief firefighter in the town. He's obviously business savvy enough to think that he can potentially flip this in and make some money off the back of it. Like, this guy he's just so perfect, which, I guess you do get in these kind of films. One thing that didn't work for me was the dead girlfriend story. It never really made sense because the only thing I could think of was that this is the only way we can understand how a guy like this is still single. But we never really get a sense of him dealing with grief and struggling to allow himself to feel love again and that kind of stuff, which would have probably added a nice little layer to the character and to the film. It just kind of felt like, oh yeah, this new American girl's come in town and I'm into her. And he didn't take any convincing, but his whole backstory was that his love of his life died a few years ago. We have one scene where he talks about it and that's it. It just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, am I assuming that he was the one that put the holiday place up to be one, like it was his grandma's, or not?
I don't think so.
Wrong in that?
No, I think that they really just like someone did it and they just let that one slide and it went away.
Because I reckon I would have liked that a lot more. Like if it had been passed down to him, and because he mentioned like something about his grandma at some stage, like he lived in the house with his grandma at this other place. I was like, you could have made drawn some better connections than just having him have this this partner that he's grieving the loss for, because as you mentioned, it's like barely touched on. And I think the whole idea of how perfect that he's a tradie and he likes to fix things that are broken, not necessarily just houses. And the one thing that probably you mentioned the fireman thing too, that was just like completely not needed. It just added, and I'll probably talk about it in scenes, added nothing to him as a character, because he's already like the best person in the world.
I want to be mates with him.
I was almost waiting for like a scene where there's a cat in a tree and they just put the fire thing on and he saves this cat from this for his old age. It's like, this guy couldn't be any better. The one thing that did get with him, he was so Aussie, and this is a key. And I know it's probably not going to, and we'll probably talk about this a bit later on, but I know it's probably not going to annoy a lot of people outside Australia and New Zealand, but this guy was so Aussie. He's playing a Kiwi. It was just ridiculous. Ridiculous.
He was like leaning into it. That was I went onto IMDb to make sure that he was Australian. At one point, he said "G'day," and I know we're not the only ones who say it, but I don't think that's a very common term in New Zealand. It was crazy, but he went to university in Australia for a couple of years, and that was it.
Yeah. Giddy. It's more like giddy instead of I don't know. Anyway, are there any other of the side characters that you wanted to talk about?
I very quickly want to mention Charlotte, who owns the opposing inn, so to speak, and she's kind of, in fact, a lot of the New Zealand, if we can call Jake an Australian character, I'm saying all the New Zealand characters are very cartoonish in a way, and it's kind of part of the charm, right? And she's kind of this cartoonish villain in a sense where, apart from texting from Gabriella's phone, which was a pretty bad thing to do, I'll be honest, she never really does anything too bad. And whilst she's kind of rude and annoying, she's pretty civil. And even at the end, it still comes down to the whole like, but we're all part of this town and we're all one and we don't want outsiders coming into the town. And even like the villain of this story isn't that bad is probably the point that I'm trying to make.
I love the idea that she's exactly like you said, a cartoony sort of villain. She's like one of those villains you see in a Disney film, and the idea, she's just a shitty villain. She's not even a villain because she's just like gives some bad looks, tries to pay someone off, loves dolls. That's like just sure, get in the doll, and but at the same time, and they don't do it very well, but they try to give you or try to make you feel some empathy for her in the fact that her husband's off in the Navy and she's lonely and she feels let down that she was, this house or this inn was meant to be passed down to her as well. It's just an interesting character that you need someone there so it's not just sweet the whole way, I guess.
Well, that's it. I got halfway through and I'm like, there's got to be someone bad here. Is it going to be the ex-boyfriend Dean, who's just kind of definitely not a villain type character. He comes in and makes it a little bit hard for them, but he's not that character. And Charlotte's as close as you get. Otherwise, it's just this nice story about two people meeting and falling in love.
So it's like Dean comes halfway across the world and just literally rocks up, and she's like, you're not for me. He's like, okay, cool, and he just walks off.
You're going into my scenes.
Oh, sorry. All right, should we move into? We'll talk about the director first, because this interested me quite a bit actually. Roger Kumble or Crumble, I don't know, whatever. What? Fill us in, Richard.
I was expecting. I don't know the name, Roger Kumble or Kumble, as he said.
Yeah.
I was expecting to see he'd done 3 Hallmark movies or something like that. But no, he directed Cruel Intentions. He's done a lot of directing for Pretty Little Liars and Suits, but even decent sized rom-coms like Just Friends and The Sweetest Thing, and he's been around.
Even currently he did the sequel to those, I think they're Amazon originals, the After and After We Collided films that have been coming out. He did that college road trip film by Disney, which was I think Raven. Was that Raven in that possibly?
Yeah, that's right.
Did that Furry Vengeance one with Brendan Fraser, the animal. I was just like, this guy's done a lot of movies that people know.
Maybe he just wanted to go to New Zealand. Beautiful place. Might have been a really nice shoot.
Yeah, true. All right, well, let's get into some scenes. What are some ones that you enjoyed in this?
I'll be frank. There's no real big couple of scenes that really stand out. There's one scene that I'll mention that I liked, which was the first scene in the hardware store. I just thought it summed up the town really nicely. It was kind of fun and cute. I loved it when obviously Jake tells her to cool her jets, and then the other staff worker with Down syndrome comes in and says, "Cool your jets." I thought that was really funny. I loved it when Norm got his nickname. The guy's name is Norman, and he was so happy to get his nickname Norm. And I actually quite like Norm in general. But that whole scene just really probably was the best scene of capturing the vibe of the small town community, which is probably one of the best things of the film. That was really comforting and refreshing and a real highlight for me. So, and the other thing that I liked, and which again, not really a scene, is just I kind of really warmed to all the Gilbert the Goat things. I thought they didn't overuse it, but they had fun with it every time that goat was there. Cheeky little goat. Just kind of worked for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. I thought the goat was hilarious. The goat was fantastic, so good. And it's one of those ones that it might be a hit or miss for people, but there are a few parts of that, and they didn't overplay it too much. But yeah, they did a few sort of scare funny bits, and then they played the character out of the goat a little bit, so that was good. The only other thing that I'll add into, I thought that there was a scene where the two of them are sitting together on the beach, and Jake just starts talking about it. Just lists off all these references that are Kiwi or Aussie sort of references, where he's talked about a Vegemite Sanger and Alan P and Chili Bins and Hokey Pokey ice cream and just having a Kiwi wife. These are all things that that are common knowledge and things. I'm just I appreciate that.
Also, isn't Vegemite strictly Australian?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they have Marmite more over there. So that was an interesting choice. God. All right, what are some things that you didn't like in this?
I've got some issues with, I guess, the competition in general when she arrived at the inn. The idea that there were just keys in the letterbox. There was no real estate agent. Even if it is a bit of a scammy competition, there's still got to be a title signed over to you in some capacity. I've just got some legal concerns over the whole process. But I think my main concern over that entire scene, process, whatever you want to call it, is the how long was Gilbert the Goat in the wardrobe? Because that looks pretty abandoned.
It's a fair call. He's probably really hungry.
Yeah, I've got some issues with that. So, there's that. And again, this is not the kind of thing that I want to be overly critical about. So there's not too many scenes. But we mentioned this before. I just thought that Dean took that breakup really well at the end. Yeah. He travelled all the way across the world. They'd broken up, and what do they say? Distance makes the heart grow fonder. And so he's obviously realized how much he misses her, that he's jumped on a plane. It's literally halfway across the world. He gets there, and then she's just kind of yeah, no, it's not working. He's like, yeah, no worries. No, you'll be right. I'll see you later on. And that was
Completely understanding. I've just got to get on a plane for 14 hours by myself. That's all good, bye.
Yeah, I'll head back now and we'll chat later. Yeah, so that was pretty strange.
I've got a list of things that just were lame and annoyed me. So
This will be fun.
So the workouts that Gabriella was doing on the VR cycle, like just ridiculously shit. Everything to do with her profession of eco recycling, green energy, solar panels, LED lights. It was just a stupid thing. Just we're environmentally conscious film. We're all good. So stick with us. It's just like shut up.
I didn't think of that as the film preaching that. I just thought of they have to give her some kind of hobby type thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The promo video for the Dream In, woeful.
Yeah, it was bad.
The meet cute really pissed me off. Just the suitcase wheeling into the car. It just was exactly like that Christmas movie we did like a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah, Christmas Inheritance.
Got off the bus and the same thing happened. That annoyed me. When she was sick and she was sneezing, she needs to learn how to sneeze. They were woeful sneezes. The tiling scene, holding hands, lame. The scene in the car when they're singing the hip hop song.
Oh yeah, that was bad.
The falling and landing on him and nearly having a kiss and go to interrupt it, rubbish. You had to have a scene, obviously, where Jake takes his shirt off. So we had that just to see his bare chest. We mentioned this before as well. Shelley sort of listening in on Gab and Shelley talking and listening in, and the texting off her phone, by Charlotte. That was just lame. The whole love letter thing. Come on.
Yeah, that was weird.
It was weird. It was added that in for no reason. And the last one, this is just one line that the film almost finished off with. And Gabriella says, "I learned that the Kiwi way of life is about fixing up what's not working and treasuring what's worth saving." I don't know. That's the Kiwi motto. I've never met a Kiwi that's said to me, "Oh, this is what our way of life's all about. Is we want to fix things." Their favorite TV show must be The Block. I don't know what the hell's going on, but it's absolute rubbish line from
that is such a good call.
An ordinary finish. All right, what are some themes or some ideas in this one?
You went hard at that. That was good, and they're all probably relevant. Look, obviously a big theme which probably ties into the Kiwi way of life is it's the idea of doing what feels right and what you love as opposed to what you think you should do. And I actually think they do this quite nicely with the eco side of things, which she's obviously very passionate about. And she kind of channels that side of her to only be able to work in the corporate world. She can bring this into the corporate world and she's going to feel really fulfilled by doing so. Whereas you kind of flip that dream and try and put it in a completely different context, and you can still be just as fulfilled doing it for yourself in a sense. So I kind of like the way that they did that and how that works, not to mention the idea of I met a guy, I fell in love. Yes, I probably should go home to San Francisco, but maybe I should just see how this works. That still ties into that too. So I thought that theme actually worked pretty well. You kind of need a personal driver in a rom-com to actually work as opposed to just two people falling in love. I think one thing that they did exceptionally well is that idea of community, and they do that in a number of ways. But as an audience, you're sitting there going, "Oh man, I'd love to live with all these guys. I'd love to walk down to the cafe and be greeted by these two guys. How nice is this? The plant store, and everyone's just a big community, and that's great." But then this is a romance movie at the end of the day, and it's about allowing yourself to be swept up by love and not being stubborn to fight through the hurdles and just go with it. Be in the New Zealand countryside and let it take over. And it does all those things really well. Yeah,
I can't really add too much to that. Idea of people working together, rebuilding, trying to move on with life. That's all I'll add. I think you did that very nicely. What did you take away from this one?
Well, I think this is the perfect Netflix movie. I don't think this is doing any kind of a dent at the box office if it's being released theatrically, particularly in 2019. When it was released. So, this is why Netflix is good, that these sort of movies do get made, and there's obviously an audience for it, and 18,000 people have rated it on IMDb, and they don't mind the movie. So that's a good thing for the industry in a sense. I also think that this, as I said, is just like a postcard for New Zealand. I wonder if I didn't check whether there was something tipped in by the, New Zealand government, or in terms of their travel, their travel partner or whatever like that, to try and get people there, because it paints a really nice picture, and it was really a real focus of the movie.
Yeah, I think that I looked up where we mentioned before where it was filmed, and I think that, like, when they first meet, he makes a comment about, Wellington's down the road that way. They're like, I think where the place is like 40 minutes out of Auckland. Wellington's a long way away from where they were. It's funny sort of thing, but like similar to what you said, this is almost like a Hallmark Channel movie that low budget, no one too huge in it, and it's just a tame film that you want that PG rating on, that can be accessible by anyone at any time of the day. You're not going to put anything in there that's too raunchy. Like, imagine all the different like sexual innuendos you could make about like building, and when they're doing the plumbing and things like there's so many things that they could make this a bit of a raunchy comedy, which they didn't. So it's keeping to that nice family type of film.
And there is just a different mindset you're in sometimes when you just want to watch something on the couch. You literally just want to press play right now. You want to know that within 2 hours your movie's finished. You didn't have to work too hard. And then, Netflix is making a lot of those movies. Good.
I reckon IMDb, I think we maybe mentioned a little bit of this before, but fill us in on if you jumped on to check anyone out.
Yeah, only to check if Adam Demos was Australian, because I've never heard of him. You obviously, I don't recognize him, or I don't think I've seen him in anything, but he is Australian.
I jumped on for the same guy, for Adam Demos, because I was like, I've seen this guy before. And obviously, you like, my wife watched that Netflix show called Sex Life on Netflix, and I reckon she had it on in the background one day, and I was cooking or something, and all I could hear was this horrendous Aussie accent, and I was like, what on earth are you watching? That guy has the most ochre rubbish accent. And I sat down with it for a couple of minutes, and anyway, I think that if you haven't really heard of this guy's famous shower scene in Sex Life, that you've probably been living in a bit of a bubble the last 12 months, because this went wild on social media the last 12 months. So if you just do a Google search and type in Sex Life and the Aussie guy, and you'll see what I'm not
going to type in Sex Life in Google.
An Aussie guy. Do it. Type in Sex Life and Aussie guy and see what comes up.
So he's in a famous shower scene.
I was at the footy with my sister and my dad earlier in the year, when there were a couple of games we could go to, and my sister's on her phone, and she opens up a chat from a friend, and I was like, what on earth is this? Everyone was screenshotting this scene. So if anyone's seen it, they'll probably know what I'm talking about.
So it's a Netflix show. So obviously, are we saying that this is a Netflix original TV show? So they must have been like, we like what Adam Damos is doing, and we'll get him into this one as well.
Yep.
I'm so curious about this scene.
Most of the questions that you see online are, is that real or is that a prosthetic?
Wow.
We've gone from a PG film to something that's not PG. So let's
it's true.
Got any questions about this film that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, just this ties back into what we're talking about, Charlotte and her dolls. But have you got any interest, or is there any appeal for you for those old school inns that they sort of have? There's very few places I'd rather stay less than that.
Yeah, those B&B sort of places, especially where it might be a little couple that owns it, and they're over the top, like you're comfortable, do you need anything? It's like sometimes when you go away, you just want to be left alone. So yeah, I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I reckon our generation and the generation coming up is going to mark the end of those kind of establishments.
Very good point. Anything else?
That was all I had.
I got a couple. So did Charlotte manage to fix that in after the fire? That was completely random.
I think she got the insurance money, right?
Yeah.
She said she was going to use the insurance money to buy the bellbird off Gabriella.
Yeah.
Then obviously the fact that she didn't buy it off her means she probably just used it to hopefully restore it and then do it up a bit better.
I reckon she just took the cash and went. Cashed in.
She's got a lot tied into that property. A lot of
true
capital tied into it.
Do you reckon that Jake pulled that guy out of the fire? Do you reckon he survived? I just really was worried about that
old
guy.
Mr. Pat. I've got to assume he did, because they were all pretty chipper by the end of that film. So
yeah,
I'm going to say yes.
Yes, good. Do you think that Gabriella should be like more mindful of online scams? Do you think that putting all your personal details into a website that look like that is a good idea?
I think it's a good learning, but I mean, to be perfectly frank, even if it's run down, like that's still a huge win. Like just the property alone, like the land itself is still worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I don't know. I don't think she got overly scammed. She didn't do anything to do it.
I can just imagine her like sitting there, they're running this place together now, and she gets a message on her computer saying, this Nigerian prince really needs your help. I think, you're a generous person. Give us some money. I don't know. It's just ridiculous. last one. Do you reckon that the title gives too much away in this? Because like watching this film, you expect there is nothing other than the two of them falling in love. So is it? I know it's a clever title, but does it give it too much away?
But when you're 5 minutes into any rom-com, do you ever have any issue with how it's going to end? So I guess they can, at least in this case, you really know what you're signing up for. But I mean, generally speaking, you know that the two main characters are going to get together.
Yeah, fair point. All right, I think we're ready to wrap this one up. Come up with a rating out of 5. What are your final thoughts for this?
Yeah, look, as we literally just spoke about then, I mean, plot-wise, it delivers on your expectations to a complete T. But I think it probably works because of the charm and that community vibe, and that becomes a huge part of the movie. It did for me anyway. I wouldn't rush to watch it again, but it was fine in the moment, and I'm still going to give it 2.5 stars.
Yeah, I mean, some pretty lame cliches, some okay performances, some good Kiwi references, some lovely scenery. I'm giving this a 2 out of 5. So
yeah,
2.25. Not too bad.
I think we've nailed that. I would have liked to have given it a 2.25 personally, I reckon.
Good. We've worked it out perfectly. We have socials. We have Twitter. I'm very tired. So tired. Oh my god. There's ice in my. I had a big basketball game last night. Didn't sleep much because I was so sore. So I'm still alive. Anyway, we've got Twitter. We've got Facebook. We have Instagram. Pop a question up there for the week. This was a line from the film. It was leap and the net will appear. What was the net in this movie? Was it the inn? Was it Jake's arms? I don't know. What was the net in this film?
Yeah. I think it's both in that sense. Like, I mean, if you put yourself in the situation, then the rest kind of just happens. And she just threw herself on the other side of the world and made a life for it. It's got a lot of got a lot of build it and they will come kind of feel to it.
Especially you mentioned before that community. Imagine like being so welcome and being like, I could live here. Lots of things.
I do like the idea of small town living. It certainly has an appeal to me.
Good. Well, we will be. This is our last episode for 2021. If you're listening currently, so we'll be back for 2022. For our first episode of 2022, we've got a French comedy from 2019 called Back to School. It's directed by Remy Four. It stars Julian War. It's directed two people. It's directed by Remy Four and Julian War. It stars Jerome Neal, Ludoc Day, and Nicholas Berno. So that's what we've got for you for next episode.
Off the top of my head, we've done at least 2 French films.
Yes, easily. It's been a while, but give it a crack and see how we go. See if it makes us laugh.
Yeah, is it a comedy? Is it? I missed that.
Yeah. So
cool.
Hopefully a good one. But other than that, this is it's been a pleasure as usual doing an episode. It's been another long year, but it's been a bit of fun keeping me sane every week chatting to you.
It is nice. It is nice not having to think about what movie I want to watch at a certain point throughout the week. Sometimes it's a regrettable choice, and sometimes it's a wonderful surprise.
I love the positivity. I will see you next time.
See you then, mate.